Hey everyone, ever feel like the world's moving faster and faster? It's like, whoa, hold on a sec.
Right, like trying to get off a carousel that's still spinning.
Exactly. And today's deep dive is all about navigating that speed, especially in the realm of work. We're diving into agile management.
Agile.
Yeah, agile management. So it's less about, those rigid plans and more about like riding the wave of change.
Yeah. It's a pretty fascinating shift in thinking when you really think about it. Building a house is very different from, say, developing a constantly updating app.
Right.
But that's the core difference that DD's Guide to Scrum Master highlights, right? Between traditional predictive management and this agile approach.
Okay, so predictive management is like you've got your blueprint, you know exactly what you're building from day one,
Yeah.
and you stick to the plan. Makes sense for a house.
Yeah.
But for software,
Yeah.
our guy really points out how things get a lot messier, I think, when innovation is kind of a key value.
Yeah, exactly. Predictive, it works best in those really
Right.
stable environments, right? Imagine a factory line, right?
Right.
Same steps, same output, day in and day out.
Yeah.
Success there is all about hitting those production targets. But with software or really any kind of knowledge work, that rigid approach can really stifle creativity and responsiveness, I think.
So agile is less about sticking to a script and more about like improvising as you go, kind of.
In a way, yeah. Imagine a jazz musician, right?
Okay.
They have a melody in mind, a structure, but the magic comes from how they riff and respond to the other musicians in real time. Agile is kind of like that for projects.
Okay, I'm digging this jazz analogy, but why software? What was it about software development that really pushed agile to the forefront?
Well, back in the late 1960s, the software world hit a bit of a wall, right? The software crisis, as it's called. Projects were failing left and right, costs were ballooning, and it became clear that the old ways of doing things just weren't cutting it.
Because trying to force rigid processes onto something as, I don't know, fluid and creative as software development just wasn't working.
Exactly. And that's where Agile emerged as a breath of fresh air, I think, like a totally new way of thinking. You see, knowledge work, unlike, say, manufacturing, is about constantly evolving ideas, right?
Right.
It's messy, unpredictable, and I think that's where its beauty lies. Deity's Guide to Scrum Master actually uses it's a really interesting concept. They say knowledge evolution follows this pattern of thesis, antithesis, and synthesis.
Okay, hold on. Got to admit, thesis, antithesis, synthesis feels a little heady, maybe.
Yeah.
Can we break that down for a moment?
Absolutely. So picture this, right? Trying to make software with rigid, like factory-like processes. That was the thesis. It seemed like a good idea at the time, bringing order to chaos.
But then chaos, as it often does, found a way to break free.
Exactly. The flaws in that approach became, I think, super obvious. And that's where Agile came in as the antithesis, right? A whole new way of thinking. It recognized that knowledge work is fundamentally different. You can't just plan everything up front. You need to be able to adapt, to incorporate new information as it emerges.
So Agile is like, okay, we have a roadmap, but we're also cool with taking a detour if we stumble upon a hidden gem along the way.
Precisely. And this responsiveness, this adaptability is what makes Agile so powerful, especially in the fast-paced world of software development and as we're seeing beyond.
So we're talking about this fundamental shift, right? Embracing change, being okay with a little bit of productive chaos. But what does that actually look like in practice? Like, how do you actually do Agile?
Well, think about it this way, right? Have you ever been so overwhelmed by a massive task that you just kind of froze?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Analysis paralysis.
Exactly. Agile tackles this head on, right?
Yeah.
Instead of getting bogged down in this huge, intricate plan, you break things down. Okay.
Right.
Smaller, more manageable chunks. Like bite-sized pieces of a project.
Exactly. DD's Guide to Scrum Master calls these sprints, right? These short bursts of focused work. It's like that saying, how do you eat an elephant?
Right. One bite at a time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Agile helps you break down those elephants.
Okay. I can see how that would be helpful, especially in this, fast-paced world we're talking about. But let's get really real for a sec. Our source material uses the example of a product manager, right? So how does Agile actually help them?
So imagine you're that product manager, right? And you've got this great idea for a new app, but the market is moving at warp speed. Would you rather spend, months perfecting every single feature before launch, or get a basic version out there and see how people respond?
Right. Get that feedback, adapt, improve. Don't let perfection be the enemy of the good or whatever, right? Exactly. And that's a key principle of Agile, right? Iterative progress. It's not about, nailing it on the first try. It's about constantly learning and refining as you go.
Sort of like how a sculptor works,
Right.
right? You don't start with a masterpiece. You chip away, you mold, you adjust based on what you see taking shape.
Yeah, what a great analogy. And that's what makes Agile so powerful, right? It acknowledges that in knowledge work, especially in today's world, the finished product is never truly, truly finished. It's this constantly evolving entity.
Okay, I'm getting chills. That's making me rethink my whole approach to work. But it seems like Agile is bigger than just software now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're seeing it everywhere.
Absolutely. And there's a good reason for that, right? Think about the core tenets of Agile, right? Embracing change, iterating quickly, focusing on customer needs. Those principles are relevant in any field, right? Where adaptability is key.
So it's less about the specific tools and more about a fundamental, shift in mindset, I guess.
You got it. It's like the old way of thinking was like trying to steer a giant cruise ship.
Yeah.
Takes forever to change course, right?
Right.
Agile is more like navigating a speedboat. You're nimble, you're responsive, and you're ready to adjust to the currents.
Okay, love the speedboat image. But all this talk about, adaptability, mindset, it's a lot to wrap your head around,
Yeah.
How can we actually apply these Agile principles in a practical way, even outside of, a tech company? That's what I love about these deep dives, Always coming away with a fresh perspective. We started with software, but this whole Agile thing, it's really making me rethink how we approach, well, everything.
It's true. Didi's Guide to SCRUM Master focuses on the tech world, but those underlying principles, they're incredibly versatile. Think about like personal goals for a second.
Okay, yeah. New Year's resolutions.
Yeah.
Those always feel very predictive management, now that you mention it.
Yeah.
Plan it all out, hope for the best.
Exactly. But imagine approaching your goals with an Agile mindset, right? Let's say your goal is to write a novel. Instead of getting overwhelmed by like the sheer size of the task, what if you break it down?
Into those Agile sprints we were talking about.
Yeah.
So instead of write a novel is write a chapter a week, or even just like write for 1 hour every day.
Now you're thinking like an Agile pro, and instead of aiming for the perfect first draft, you embrace the messiness of the creative process, knowing you'll iterate and refine along the way.
That takes the pressure off for sure. It's funny how we often treat our personal lives so differently from our work lives.
Yeah.
Like we get so caught up in the need for perfection, for having all the answers up front.
And that's where Agile offers a refreshing alternative, I think. It's about acknowledging that we don't always have to have all the answers. It's about embracing the unknown, being comfortable with uncertainty, and trusting that we can adapt and adjust as we go.
So instead of fearing change, we learn to ride the wave.
Exactly. And that, I think, is the most valuable takeaway from our deep dive today. Agile isn't just a set of, tools or techniques. It's a way of being in the world. It's about approaching challenges with a flexible mindset, a willingness to experiment, and a relentless focus on continuous improvement.
I'm starting to think we could all use a little more of that Agile mindset in our lives.
Couldn't agree more. It's about being adaptable, resilient, and always open to learning and growing. And that's a recipe for success in any field, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. So there you have it, everyone. We've journeyed from the world of software development to the depths of personal growth, all thanks to the magic of Agile thinking. Remember, it's not about doing everything perfectly. It's about embracing the journey, adapting to change, and never stopping the process of learning and evolving.
And on that note, we'll leave you with this. What aspect of your life, your work, or even your hobbies could benefit from a little dose of Agile thinking?
Keep that question in mind as you go about your week. You might be surprised by the insights you uncover. Until next time, happy diving.